Hello everybody, and welcome back to CAD Tips and Tricks with Smart Design. I'm Jules, a design engineer here at Smart, and today we're going to be talking about five-sided surfaces. For this model, I built off of a handle model that Nick had previously shown in episode 3, but I have attached a Y prong to the end. The Y prong attaching to the handle creates a five-sided boundary. Five-sided boundaries are typically dealt with in a similar way to three-sided boundaries. We want to convert them into four-sided surfaces. This way, our model could be more stable, we could have smoother surfaces, and we could also create more complex geometry. We generally see this complex geometry in things like handheld tools, appliances, or situations in which things branch off one from another. Now let's get into the model. Now I'm going to get into the master model so I could show you how I created the geometry of the prong so that it seamlessly transitions into the handle. So I started by creating two frames, a side and a top frame, and two datums, a top datum and a side datum, as well as a top surface that I used to dictate the rest of geometry. The top surface I used to create tangencies for my curves later on. First, I create a parting line that dictates the outer profile of my prong, and then I sweep along that profile so that I can have the same draft as my handle. Now getting into the actual geometry of the prong, I start by creating this curve on my end plane, and the geometry of this curve isn't necessarily as important because all this curve is doing is allowing us to create this very simple and stable four-sided surface. And this surface is what we use to build the rest of the geometry off of later. Getting into our second style feature, this is where we actually start to build the geometry of the prong. So we have a curve that dictates the inner profile of our prong, and then we project that curve to our top plane. Using that curve on our top plane, we're able to build out the side profile of our prong, in which the one side is tangent to our parting line surface in one direction, and then the other point on our curve is tangent to the top surface that we built out. Now, mimicking that geometry, we also build another curve on plane that we use to create a very simple four-sided surface. Now this is where the geometry starts to get a little bit weird since we're now left with this five-sided open boundary. Now in order to close off this five-sided open boundary, we want to try and convert this into a more stable four-sided boundary. And we do this by creating a curve on surface from the surface that we had created earlier in our previous style tool. On one end, we create a tangency to the parting line, and the other end we create a normalcy to the side plane. And this allows us to now bound off a very simple four-sided surface. And then finally, with this patch here, we trim back our original surface so that we close off the geometry. The rest of the file is just creating surfaces that we merge together so that we can close off the geometry of our prong. And then we bring that geometry all into our part file and solidify it with the handle. And as you can see, it creates a very smooth surface transitioning between the prong and the handle. Now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next one.